Hello, my name is Melissa Conley Tyler. I'm the National Executive Director of the Australian Institute of International Affairs, and I'm delighted to have here as our guest here today my colleague from the Chinese Institute of International Studies, Dr Ruan Zongze. Thank you very much for coming and joining us.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for having me.
Yes, well, it's an important week to make sure that your message is heard. We've had the decision this week on the arbitral tribunal decision with regard to the Philippines case on the South China Sea. So I want to start with just what's your reaction to this decision?
Well, I was really shocked, surprised, totally surprised, because these kind of awards, and I try to use some media's phrase, the sweeping victory of Philippines. So it creates a lot of problems in answers. So I think the misleading, the damaging has been out there. And of course, people are now digesting what will be the long-term impact, long-term consequences. I think must be some of them. And so I think this is a kind of the awards undermine the reputation and also the integrity and the credit of this arbitral tribunal.
And China obviously has been very clear in its condemnation. What do you think China's response will be now that this award is out?
Well, I think a couple of points very briefly here. Before these awards, China has made its position crystal clear. China will not recognize, not support, not participate in any kind of these proceedings. Now, the policy will not going to change. Secondly, I think after this ruling came out, China issued a couple of statements. You have seen that. One by the Chinese government, the other by the foreign ministry, and also today came out a white paper on this exactly the case between China and the Philippines. And I think that there will be more kind of a statement to come out in the following days. And the basic position in China, number one, reaffirm its position that China is rejecting this tribunal, their awards and verdict, and based on two things. Number one, in China's perspective, this award or this tribunal that is abusing its power to go far beyond its jurisdiction, because the essence of this ruling or this case is actually about the sovereignty issue. So you can see from the award that the nature of this award is to deny China's sovereignty in the South China Sea.
In terms of historical rights.
Historical rights and the dot line and also the maritime feature status of Taiping Dao and others, just name a few. And secondly, I think China's made a statement to exclude itself from any kind of arbitration long before this tribunal established back in 2006. And China is not alone. Australia made a similar statement on that. I think plus many other countries, about 30 of them. And the position for China is not to handle the issue, address the differences, including the disputes between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea, on a bilateral basis.
And so on that, what do you see as likely with China-Philippines relations going forward? I'm thinking particularly under the new Duterte administration. What do you see as the trajectory for China-Philippines relations?
Well, first one, this relationship has been substantially damaged by this case, and it became the lowest point I was trying to argue. Of course, the new president came into power in Philippines. Um, he also makes some conciliatory remarks. On a couple of occasions, he tried to send in the message saying that he would like to approach with China about these disputes in the South China Sea through bilateral talk. China welcomes this. China is very much committed to talk, committed to address this issue through bilateral basis. That has been long-term China's policy too. So I think now there is a window of opportunity, but it will do much more to deliver. Because I think one thing I like to underscore is that we where is the starting point for possible negotiation or talk between China and the Philippines. It will be wrong for the Philippine government to use the award as a kind of basis for any kind of further talk or negotiate, because China made it quite clear it will not recognize that and not implement that. And we should go back before, return to the point before the tribunal issues. And among just between China and Philippines, we reached numerous agreements on how to address the differences and the disputes in the South China Sea between China and the Philippines. So we need to try to navigate to that kind of a basis and about the future.
Well, the whole case raises this question, which often gets discussed, about whether China is a power that respects international law, a status quo power, as it's sometimes talked about, or whether it's trying to change the rules of the game. Is it a more revisionist power? What's your view on that question?
Well, China has been a rule taker for a long time. When China opening up and reform, what China has been done so significantly is try to integrate itself to the international system. By saying this, is China has been trying to respect, try to learn, and then try to play with the rule of the game. Not challenger. China is not challenging the whole international system. As a matter of fact, China has been a beneficiary of this world system. Though there are some area China doesn't like it or not fully reflect the developing countries' representatives or their discourse, their mandatory whatsoever. However, in general, China is strongly support the current international system. And of course, in the same time, China's recognized that this is no perfect. So China tried to argue that it needs to some kind of reform to reflect the rising of the rest. I think this is quite reasonable. And the 2008 financial meltdown in the United States, that triggered a question. The current global governance mechanism couldn't adequately address the financial problem. So that's why
G20.
the G20 is the birth.
Which is being hosted by China this year.
Yeah, absolutely. China will host this G20 this year in Hangzhou in September. And we also have witnessed the reform of IMF and the World Bank to raise the status quo
They're
of
not fully
developing countries.
implemented as quickly as I'm sure China would like.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Having said this, so China basically has been a responsible player. We care our credibility, we care about the reputation. But the question about associates with South China Sea, because China's rejection to this, people say, well, China, you are not, that will damage your reputation, for example. I heard very often people say that. However, I think here is a misunderstanding. China choosing not to participate, not to be part of this proceeding, is precisely China is exercise the right under the UNCLOS, under the article of 298 of UNCLOS. So as a sovereign state, you can choose yes or no. China, of course, we choose not to engage in any kind of proceedings, and along with China, about 30 countries made a similar choice. So here is not because China wants to challenge or China intentionally to disrespect the international law. No, it is not. On the contrary, China exercise the rights we're entitled to have. So here's a misunderstanding.
One question that's often raised, I think, with China's increasingly assertive stance on some issues, and I think that's been driven by parts of foreign policy thinking within China, that things that assertiveness is right and proper, is whether there's any conflict between being assertive on some of these sovereignty issues versus wanting to have the sort of stable and peaceful external environment that has been so conducive to China's internal economic development.
Well, this is a very interesting question, and I may not agree totally the assertive narrative. However, China is getting more tougher than it used to be, particularly in safeguarding its sovereignty and territorial integrity. And in the past over 30 years, when China opening up reform, and China tried to be very accommodative, try to be getting along with the international community and its neighbors, and it's pretty rewarding.
Hide and bide worked very well for a long time.
Well, to some extent, and that also creates a question, because China, one of the typical thing for China, we share so many neighbors, and we have the territorial issues, maritime issues with them, right? Unlike Australia.
And land borders, yes.
So we don't have that kind of serious. We have to deal with various kind of neighbors for those tough issues. However, through all these years' painstaking effort, China has successfully signed border treaty with 12 countries out of 14 neighbor countries. And China reached agreement with Vietnam to address the maritime, the Bible Bay area. So that, I will say, it's a remarkable achievement for China. Can you name another country who address so many border problem with its neighbors? No, I think China is quite unique in this regard. However, still some challenges out there. Because China is very much committed to peaceful development, Chinese leadership made it very clear on many occasions. I think some people, they may misinterpret or misunderstand this peace development strategy or policy commitment. For example, they say they can do whatever to China to challenge China's sovereignty and its territorial integrity on the presumption China, you should not fight back. If you talk back, if you fight back, they will accuse China, look, you are not committed to a peaceful development. However, I think I need to highlight here, our leadership made it quite clear. To pursue this peaceful development does not mean China will sacrifice its core interest. So let me put it this way, it's a kind of conditional commitment that actually demands China's neighbors and other countries, they should also pursue a policy of peaceful commitment. If they assert their position, the damage or they undermine China's sovereignty, the interest that will put China in the corner. However, your question is, which also sometimes bother me as well. On one hand, we need to safeguard, should be strong and firm in safeguarding China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. On the other hand, whether this kind of policy will alienate its neighbors, partners away from China. So I think this is really a challenge for China. I think we are trying to accommodate, and I hope we could do a better job.
Well, perhaps your visit to Australia and some of the discussions you're having while you're here might be part of that dialogue. So can I thank you very much for joining us? And for further material, please go to internationalaffairs.org.au for Australian Institute of International Affairs videos on other topics.
Thank you.